Be calling to order our regular Stanton City Council meeting, Successor Agency, Housing Authority, and City Joint Regular Meeting for 6:30. Roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council Agency Authority Member Barrios. Present. Council Agency Authority Member Taylor. Here. Council Agency Authority Member Warren. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Vice Chairman Torres.
Present.
And Mayor Chairman Shopper. Here. Thank you, sir.
Sergeant, would you please lead us in the flag tonight? Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving on to item number 8. This is special presentations and awards. Tonight we're going to be honoring and recognizing Stanton Women of Distinction for 2025. Several years ago, we had a councilwoman. Her name was Carol Warren. She was our recent Mayor Pro Tem. We now have her son, John, with us. John, hold your hand up. There you go. So his mom did great things, and I'm sure John will as his legacy is being built. She came up with the idea of why don't we pick the women in our community that have served and dedicated their lives to making not only the community better, their families better, but also the county better. So over the years, we've picked many of these ladies. They are nominated by the public. We take a look and actually vet them and check everything out. And as I look at the award winners tonight, I'm telling you that the 3 young women that we have here tonight are outstanding and well deserve this award. In just a moment, we're going to have each of you come up and recognized individually, and we're going to be making a presentation to you. It's always been the Mayor Pro Tem that kind of goes through the information, so I'm going to turn it back over to. Thank
you.
Thank you.
So we'll start it off. Okay. It is my great honor to present the 2025 Women of Distinction Awards. Tonight we gather to shine a spotlight on 3 remarkable women. These women represent the heart of our city, lifting others up, building connections, and making our community stronger, one act of kindness at a time. Our first woman of distinction is Celia Lopez. Celia is the proud owner of Panaderia Cortez. Oh, I go there every morning. That's so funny. She is driven, generous, and passionate business owner, and even with her busy schedule, she still finds time to give back. Cecilia volunteers several times a week at St. Polycarp Church, where she works closely with 2 youth groups, including teenagers aged 13 to 18. Whether she's providing mentorship or baking fresh bread, Celia makes the world a better place, one loaf and one life at a time. Thank you. Celia López es la dueña de Panadería Cortés. Ella es bien generosa y apasionante business owner de su comunidad. Le encanta participar muchas veces a la semana en nuestra local iglesia, St. Polycarp Church, donde ella trabaja bien cerca con grupos de niños, especialmente teenagers, la edad de 13 a 18. Ella ha impactado tantas vidas. Muchas gracias por estar aquí, y también el pan es muy rico. Gracias.
Gary, you have the flowers, would you please?
Carefully, they're 2 separate pieces. Oh, a pin.
For our second honoree is Maria Montes. Maria has supported our local schools, serving as PTA president at both Bryant Elementary and Alamitos Intermediate, treasurer at Los Alamitos High School, Rancho Alamitos High School, and the advisory committee for the Garden Grove Unified School District and the GRIP program and many educational workshops. Maria is also a longtime volunteer with the Community Engagement Advisory Committee and is an active member of the Women's Council at St. Polycarp Church. From cultural events to hands-on service, she brings people together with warmth, humility, and purpose. Thank you.
Can you come back up? Okay.
What a great lineup of women so far. Lastly, and our final winner, or final women of distinction this evening, is Guadalupe Vigil. Guadalupe has been a dedicated member of the Community Engagement Advisory Committee for the past 5 years. She is passionate about supporting the well-being of Stanton families. She volunteers monthly for food distribution, participates in every city-sponsored event, and serves on the task force to reduce tobacco use among youth. Always seeking to grow, she attends workshops and serves as a parent volunteer at Western High School. Awesome. She is a passionate advocate, a trusted voice, and a true difference maker. Please join me in congratulating this year's honorees. Your commitment to our community, your example of compassion, strength inspires us all. Let's give them a round of applause. Our final honoree is not here today, but we will get there. Oh yes, please, all the recipients come, please, all at once. Thank you.
Yes, everybody to the front for photos, the family of the honorees.
report out of closed session?
Mayor and council, there's nothing to report.
Thank you. Take it. All right, we're moving on to item number B, 8B. We're going to get Townsend Public Affairs to give us a state and federal legislative report and update.
All right, good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Good to see everyone. Eric O'Donnell with Townsend Public Affairs. It's been a little while since I've been here. So I will give you a brief Sacramento and DC update. Please let me know at the end if you have any questions. Some of this, for those that were here last year, will be a little bit of a review on the front side, but should get into some details after. Starting with Sacramento, the legislature has been back for a couple months now. They started their first year of a 2-year session. So in Sacramento, we do 2-year sessions. Right now, we are starting over from scratch when it comes to bill numbers, AB1, SB1, et cetera. By the bill introduction deadline on February 19th, there was about 2,350 bills introduced in Sacramento. That's about right for this time of year in a first year of a session. Again, we've talked about it a lot, but it's still very important. There was about a 25% new member turnover from the November elections, mostly because of term limits from the 2012 ballot initiative. But between the 2 years before that, this year, we're looking at over 50% in the last 2 to 4 years of turnover. And that's a massive, massive change up in Sacramento when you're talking about institutional knowledge. When it comes to maybe the most significant thing that happened in a rule setting, members used to be able to submit 40 or 50 bills per session, depending on if you're in the Assembly or the Senate. This year, they decided to drop everyone down to 35. So senators that had 50 bills now have to introduce only 35. So that's a big change. And so that's a change that we're not going to feel right now, but this time next year, we're going to really feel it. It's going to be a lot fewer bills that will be introduced. If everyone's maximizing, it could be up to 1,400 fewer bills for a full session. That sounds like good governance, right? And let's get everything. But what it does is it really makes sure the members are serious about the bills they are introducing and making sure that the staff who have limited time as well are able to put everything they have into the bills that are actually introduced, as opposed to introducing bills maybe for statement purposes. New committee leadership is also always a big thing. So when you have elections, they have consequences, obviously, and depending on the outcomes of those, new leaders will rise. Speaker Rivas and Senator McGuire have a very centralized approach to their leadership, whereas I think previous speakers and pro tems have let their committees really run the show. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out later this year. Right now, timeline-wise, we're just entering the policy committee phase. So all bills that have been introduced have sat for 30 days and are currently taking amendments after the public has taken a look at them. And in the next month and a couple weeks, they will be going through policy committees where members will vote to determine if that's a good policy to set forward for California. Special session recap. So I put this up here and I want to talk a little bit about it just because I want to be sure to mention how much time this dominated up in Sacramento. It ate up from everything else. So directly after the November election, Governor Gavin Newsom called for a special session, which is really another parallel legislative session where you can only talk about the narrow focus of that session. So the session he wanted to call was about preparing California for a Trump administration and what that means. In the news, he was very public about wanting to appropriate more dollars to the state attorney general and to some legal defense funds to ensure that President Trump policies would not affect California values. So that was later expanded when the LA wildfires broke out. It was a convenient tool that was already in place for a special session to be able to address the wildfire disaster in LA as well. So that special session was now both too focused on President Trump's agenda as well as the wildfire recovery. So what you see at the bottom here is the results of that. So at the end of that session, a couple bills were introduced. I think it was only 2 or 3 in total. $25 million in additional budget from the legislature for anticipated legal battles for California residents, and $25 million for immigration legal aid as well, again, in anticipation of President Trump's platform. $2.5 billion for wildfire response. That was just the initial tranche of what they got. So you can see that number is massive. And it is probably only going to scratch the surface of what is actually needed in order to truly recover from that disaster. However, California is cautiously optimistic that a lot of that, if not all of that, is reimbursable from FEMA, assuming that that process still exists when we get there to get to the FEMA level, and that the federal government accepts those reimbursement requests. Moving on to the governor's January budget proposal. We do multi-year budgeting here in California lately, so it's not uncommon that the second or third year of a multi-year budget is better than the first year because we've been planning for it for multi-years. So we're actually looking at a $322.2 billion budget as of a couple months ago. That's going to change, but frankly, I think the best news of that is it's relatively balanced. And that's due to the efforts of last year where there was a lot of clever accounting. I know if you remember, we talked about a lot of cuts, a lot of clever accounting, a lot of shifts and deferrals, and that's coming to be our benefit this year. It's looking like it will change in the May revise. Oh, we got ahead of ourselves here. It'll change in the May revise, but right now we're thinking about a $300 to $500 million surplus. That's not a lot of money in the general $322 billion estimate of the budget. However, and I'll go out of order here, you can imagine that all of that, if not more, will be eaten up by this LA wildfire recovery. And more will have to be backfilled from that. So while it's good that we're operating in a surplus, I would not expect it to be money raining down from the heavens, because I think a lot of that is going to be spoken for already because of the disaster, as well as the Washington, D.C. dynamics right now. With cuts coming out of D.C., should they get through, I'm very confident that California will do what they can to backfill some of those cuts of federal funding that they were counting on, probably to Medi-Cal, probably to other social programs that California has passed in the last several years. So it's very likely that most of that surplus and more will go to those programs. There were some additional cost cutting this year in the budget. About 6,500 vacant positions in California were eliminated to save money on that, as well as some efficiencies across department when it came to sharing equipment and sharing labor as well, just to make sure that they were being as efficient as possible. Looking ahead, man, I got to stop doing that. Looking ahead to key issues, I'm not going to talk about specific bills tonight. It's a little early. There's a lot of influx, but key issues that we can look for in 2025 that are already coming out. Housing should be very much not a surprise for everybody. Housing has been the domination up in Sacramento for a long time now. We will see more bills trying to reduce or increase the affordability of housing, reduce the cost of housing, maybe potentially reduce the cost of labor on housing, but you will continue to see land use bills taking away local control to be able to streamline housing in any zone that they want. That is going to continue to be a theme up in Sacramento. Cap and trade reauthorization, I put that on there because it's something we haven't really talked about a whole lot, but it is going to be a very significant conversation in Sacramento this year. Cap and trade is our program we passed several years ago that taxes big polluters in the state, puts a cap on them, and then uses that money and redistributes to grant programs to reduce emissions. That program is set to expire in 2030, and if it sounds like it's too far away, it's not. That it's coming up pretty quick. So it's likely the legislature this year or next year will be extending that program, and with extension comes the conversation of where does the money go? And so a lot of those conversations, it's now to start those conversations about where we want the billions of dollars per year that's generated from this to go, and where's the best use of funds when it comes to reducing greenhouse gas emissions in the state. RENA reform, we all know the troubles we have with RENA. Cal Cities actually has a bill this year to require that cities or mandate that cities get their RENA numbers at least 6 months earlier than they currently are getting them, which would be a big help in terms of the planning process. But I think you can expect 2 or 3, maybe more bills when it comes to redefining RENA, or at least maybe bringing it into the light a little bit with some more transparency. Property insurance availability and affordability kind of hand in hand with this wildfire crisis we're in right now. A lot of folks are getting dropped from their property insurance or wildfire insurance plans. Maybe not so much in this area, but I just want to let you know that it is dominating the legislature's attention right now statewide, and it is something that is very much taking up dozens of bills and a lot of hours in Sacramento. Brown Act modernization, that's kind of a term we use for extending what we currently have in play for flexibility when it comes to virtually participating in these council meetings, both as an elected and as the public. There are some changes this year that will happen to that. There's several competing bills, I'll say, in terms of what approaches to take, but the general gist is to maintain flexibility of what you currently have, but also maximize transparency on the public side so that if you do elect to be remote, the public has an opportunity to also be remote, et cetera. And then Proposition 36 implementation, that was our big public safety ballot measure that was passed in November. That's going to take a lot of time and a lot of money to implement from the legislature, so there will be dozens of bills this year allocating funding to the justice system, to the jail system, to be able to withstand the what they're assuming is to be a big influx of inmates. Moving on to Washington, D.C., it is an interesting time right now in Washington, D.C. It is a confusing time in Washington, D.C. right now. It seems that every day is a new story, and it is a really a learning curve for all of us. We had, obviously, a leadership change in D.C., congressional change a little bit, but not so much on that. But there is razor-thin majorities in the House of Representatives right now for the Republicans, a little bit of a cushion in the Senate. But what that means is a lot of gridlock and a lot of uncertainty. And so Republicans, I believe, based on vacancies, and there's some people that are out on maternity leave and some people in the hospital, it changes day to day in terms of if they have the votes per day. So a lot of pushing, a lot of wasted votes. So it is a process. That being said, we are constantly keeping staff informed on the executive orders that are coming out, impacts to the city. But it is, I just want to be clear, it is changing rapidly, and the legal aspect of it is also uncertain. And well, most of these executive orders are being challenged in court, and some of them are being challenged successfully, and that puts a 30-day stay or so on it while it gets worked out. So we are on top of it. The appropriations was passed in March 14th, I believe, or March 13th. That is basically the term we use for the budget in D.C. That essentially means that the budget is funded at last year's levels all the way through September 30th this year, which is when our federal fiscal year ends. Most importantly for the city, that full year continuing resolution did not include earmarks. So it did not include federal community project funding, which is a real bummer for us because we had a pending project in that bill from Congressman Correa. All projects nationwide got wiped out in that. It wasn't just your city, so it really was an all or nothing event, and it's a real bummer, and we'll talk about that on the next slide here. But it is something that was a big deal in the last couple weeks. Speaking of community project funding, that process for 2026 is already starting right now. In fact, the first deadline is on Friday for your senators, Senator Schiff, I believe, and then Monday is Senator Padilla, and then Congressman Correa will be the Friday after that. But we are resubmitting the project that made it into the bill last year but didn't get finalized. That is the Community Center Senior Center Rehabilitation Project right next door. We are also submitting two projects. One of them should be familiar, is the Police Station Rehabilitation Phase 2. So we got funding 2 years ago for that project for Phase 1. Now we are going back trying to finish the job with Phase 2. And then a brand new project for purchasing security cameras across the city that will be integratable into the sheriff's system as well. So more public safety theme, 2 out of 3 public safety theme. That seems to be right in line with what Congressman Correa and your senators would like to see. And so we're excited about the opportunity there and hoping that one of them will be included in the congressman or the senator's list. To that end, we were, a couple weeks ago, Councilmember Barrios and I did go to D.C. On an advocacy trip to talk about these projects and to talk with Congressman Correa and Senator Padilla's office and a little bit with Senator Schiff's office as well to discuss these, and it was very successful. Councilmember Barrios was representing the city very well in those meetings, and we hope that would do us well when these lists come out in a couple weeks. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I think this is a great opportunity for Victor to tell us a little about your trip.
Yeah. Okay. As you know, I was there with Eric. It was probably one of the best experiences that I've ever had in my life. Was able to meet with Congressman Correa, Senator Schiff's office, and Padilla's. Met a lot of people from all over our country. even locally, some council members from Anaheim, some council members from Santa Ana, Paso Robles. One of the themes that when we discussed, I came back with at least 100 business cards. And one of the things that we have in common with everybody all over the country is the homeless population. And so it's not just a local issue, it's a national issue. Affordable housing, you know, what's affordable over here, you know, houses over here, 800, 900,000 plus, in other states, 300, 400, and when they say that, I'm like, that's cheap. But again, it's in a different part of the country. You know, one of the things that Senator Padilla's office was saying in our projects is about public safety, you know, and my goal was to get in, because I know Congressman Correa has funded us in the past, and I don't believe Senator Padilla or Schiff has funded us, and one of the things was to get a connection with them, so they would put a face with the name with the city. And one of the pictures you'll see, I was actually in the front with them, and I'm gonna do a follow-up email, just say, hey, you know what, just remember it was a pleasure meeting you, take a picture, and then also put a link from when I used to cut the grass for the city. You know, just put a picture in their head. But I'll tell you what, it was a great experience. I look forward to being a part of the National League Cities, and being, you know, part of their membership. I know I've discussed it with Hannah, and, you know, in the future we'll discuss it more. But I think it was an experience that we all may want to experience, you know, in the future. I mean, there's just a lot of information, and if you look at the three-ring folder that I gave each of you, there's a lot of information, and I felt that there was so much information there that I didn't get to absorb it all. So what I ended up doing is just keeping all the pamphlets, making the copies, you know, a pamphlet for all of us, gave the originals to our city manager, and that way we can use it as a reference in the future. Because there's a lot of programs, there's a lot of funding available, and we may not know about it, but it's out there. So I tell you, it was just awesome. The networking was great. Any questions? Okay, I'm just gonna show you, no, John. Go ahead.
Just gonna ask, what did your dining options look
This is how good the dining options were. I ordered my protein shakes from Costco and had them delivered. Because Eric and I went to a restaurant, which was good, but I'm more of a simple person, so I was looking for names I know, and there wasn't many. The nearest McDonald's was, I think, 2 miles away, and I'm like, I'm not rolling 2 miles. I know Eric and I, when we were meeting with Senator's office, how long would you say it took us to wait for a handicapped taxi? So the second day, the next day I went to on Wednesday, my wife was with me, and after the senator's meeting with Schiff and Padilla, I called the taxi guy, the same one that dropped us off. He says, I can be there in about 2 to 3 hours. And I'm like, no. I go, we're rolling. So it was about an hour, 15-minute, hour, 20-mile roll. But I saved the city money on the taxi. And we did find a familiar name restaurant, which was the Cheesecake Factory. So that was good. Go ahead and share a short clip that I put together. And Vice President Vance was a guest speaker there, which was great to see. I was only 2 rows behind, and it was awesome. And I was able to get in the front row picture because I was second row at the end, and I stay away from everyone, you know, just my thing. So when they said everybody get in the picture, I actually went just to the edge in the first row, and everybody got in front of me. And I'm like, man, that's okay. But both senator staffers told everybody, you guys need to move, get out of the way. They pulled the tables away, and they're all, come on, you're going to the front. So that was pretty cool of them. So, you know, but again, it was an awesome experience. And you know what, Eric, thanks for going along with me, and you know what, setting up the taxis, you know, and one of the biggest things I learned there in DC is you have to plan ahead for the handicap taxis. And I didn't realize it because I flew out Thursday, I called Tuesday night, and it took me the 3rd or 4th taxi company to find one. I told my wife, you're gonna take the taxi there, and I'm gonna start rolling to the airport at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'll meet you there. But it was great. And Hannah, thank you again. Council members, thank you again for the support. And it was just, again, awesome.
Somebody that's on the committee or commission, I think is it AB 13? I can't. 12, yeah, so this meets the requirement, right? I want to put that on the record.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You're okay now, you don't go to jail for that. Any other questions? Thank you, kind sir. Thank you. We'll see you when you come with more specific bills. And I want to thank you for the advocacy you have in helping us with our housing projects. It's been a real struggle, but I think we're making great progress. So thanks for that, as always. Okay, we're moving on to the consent calendar. At this time, everything can be taken in a single action. Have we had any correspondence?
Mr. Mayor, we have none.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to talk on item 9, consent calendar? Okay, I'll close the public opportunity. And we'll move back. We're looking at items A, B, C, D, E, and F. I'd like to pull F at this time, and I'll move the balance.
First.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody object? Anybody abstain? Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, before you, we have item 9F is a city sponsorship request for the Stanton Community Foundation Annual Car Show. Your questions for staff, sir.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to give Councilmember Warren an opportunity to tell us a little bit about this. There's going to be some changes, and I'm very excited about them. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mayor. We're going on with our 22nd annual car show. The car show has been a quiet tradition for Stanton for many years, and in its current iteration, it's in its 22nd year, but there's been previous iterations. This is just the consecutive car show where we're at now, which in upcoming changes to Stanton Park, that required us to look for a new venue this year, and this year we're going with Rodeo 39. It's been pretty fun working with them and trying to get that all sorted out, but looking forward to it. It's gonna be nice to have an in and out at a car show. That's not an option we've had before, but it's been great working with them, and I look forward to that. And it's been fun trying to negotiate everything, and we've had to do it in rather short order this year, but it looks like we're making it happen.
Go ahead.
John and I are on the Stanton Community Foundation, and John has been working really hard actually to get everything set up, so it's really cool to see that. A lot of people in the Stanton Community Foundation do a lot of events, especially with the city, so I think that this partnership is 100% needed, especially when I see kids from our local high schools attending our car show. Hopefully with the change of location, we'll have more people to show up. My favorite thing is that we get classic cars from people that live like in Las Vegas. You know what I mean? So people make the trip over you know, it's like their tradition every year. So I would really like to see the sponsorship go through, and I hope to see council there as well and buy some T-shirts.
How about the overflow parking? How's that going?
So
Any
I
other
do,
comments? Oh, go ahead, John.
I'll make comments saying that I want to thank the mayor for doing his part and talking with Rodeo, who has connections with the local businesses over there. And Rodeo's securing some overflow parking with the QD venue and other businesses in the commercial park there. And yeah, so one of the things about the timing for this year is we changed the time from 7 a.m. to noon. And we did so as Rodeo's doors open at 11. And so that was a way for us to be able to cross over, but without restricting their customers from being able to access the property. So I think this arrangement's kind of working out for everybody at this point. So.
And now we can tell your ulterior motive. Your ulterior motive was because of limited parking. If you want to get parking, you have to pay a fee and enter the car show, right? Good job, John. I'll move the balance.
Second.
Any opposed? Any abstained? That passes. Okay. We'll now move on to we're now finished our consent calendar. We have no public hearings. We have no unfinished business. New business 12A. This is a request for a second extension of expired commercial cannabis cultivation permits. I bet that's you.
That is me. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the council. On November 5th, 2019, Stanton voters passed Measure A, establishing a tax on cannabis business operations within the city. In June 2020, the council adopted Ordinance 1100, establishing regulations and zoning standards related to commercial cannabis businesses. Subsequently, the city received the following applications for commercial cannabis activities. For the permit categories of cultivation, 4 applicants, delivery, 5 applicants, distribution, 1 applicant, manufacturing, 1 applicant, and retail, 45 applicants. In November 2021, the council issued the following permits: 3 for cultivation, 4 for delivery, 1 for distribution, 1 for manufacturing, and 4 for retail. All permittees were required to be operational by May 2023. As of November 2023, the 4 retail permittees were operational and the other 9 had all expired. During its December 12, 2023 meeting, the council contemplated approving extensions to the expired cultivation permits as long as the businesses delivered upon their commitment to pay the cultivation taxes that would have been received by the city had the businesses been operational by the November 2023 deadline. In late 2023, the cultivation businesses estimated they would be operational in 18 to 36 months, dependent upon the services required from Southern California Edison. On April 23, 2024, the council conducted the second reading of ordinance number 1142, which provided a commercial cannabis cultivation permittee the option to exercise a final 36-month permit extension. In consideration of the additional extension, the council determined the permittees were to pay 50% of the cultivation fee, at that time $6.51 per square foot, for the first 18 months of the extension, and the full fee of $13.02 at that time per square foot for the second 18 months of the extension. It was made clear in the agreement that there was no guarantee that a permittee would receive a certificate of occupancy at the expiration or termination of the extension period. Each permittee entered into an agreement with the city acknowledging that they were continuing to work through the extension period at their own risk. Following the extension granted by the council, the city expected the cultivation permit holders to begin paying fees as of June 2024 on a quarterly basis. After 6 months of no payment and no response from the permittees, the city manager reached out one final time to document that the extended permits would be revoked due to a breach of agreement. As of March 2025, the 2 permittees owed the city approximately $26,000 and $43,000, or a total of approximately $69,000. In response to the city's notice, the permittees responded with the following proposal. Each permit holder would immediately pay $6,000. The remaining balances would be paid over 6 months in addition to the ongoing fee that would accrue monthly in equal installments with a 5% interest rate applied. The city would grant an additional 24-month extension through May of 2029 for a total of 7.5 years from the original date of award of permit. In addition, the permittees are requesting a deferral of tax payments, even though both permittees signed an agreement with the granting of the first extension. They are also asking for the city to reconsider parking variances, and finally are asking the city to advocate on their behalf with Southern California Edison and the Orange County Sanitation District. Regarding the extension of the operational deadline, staff does not feel it is reasonable to extend the deadline an additional 2 years for a total project timeline of 7.5 years. Regarding the deferral of tax payments, in 2019, Stanton voters established a tax on commercial cannabis businesses. Voters made their will and their expectations known to the council and expected revenue generation starting in 2024. Regarding the reconsideration of parking variances, the city has adopted certain parking standards, and it is staff's responsibility to ensure all projects abide by these documented standards so as not to exacerbate the difficult parking issues already experienced throughout the city. Finally, regarding the requests for advocacy, although staff does facilitate communication when appropriate, it is not the city's responsibility to take the lead to resolve service issues or wastewater discharge compliance issues on behalf of an applicant. Based on the lack of forward progress, the opportunity costs associated with the significant time and energy staff members from community development, finance, and administration have invested into this process, and the signed agreement from both parties, staff is recommending the council take the following actions. Number 1, deny the second extension request for expired cannabis cultivation permits and the associated provisions of the submitted proposal. And number 2, affirm that the extension period for both permit holders has terminated and become null and void based on a violation of the terms and conditions of the permit extension. There is a typographical error in the recommended actions as printed in the agenda, which states that permit holders still have until May 2027 to exercise their rights under the current extension. Based on their breach of contract to date, this is not a valid option. Staff recommends council make the amended motion as stated previously. That concludes my staff report, and staff is available to answer any questions. In addition, I believe both permittees have representatives in the audience tonight to answer any questions from the council. Thank you.
Thank you. I had an opportunity to sit down and go over the contract with the city manager. I think it was a couple of days ago. And so I just want to lay out some facts that I discovered. Number 1, we only had 2 people apply for cultivation at that particular time. Right now, as we know, the industry is not doing very well in a lot of areas for many different reasons, as far as expanding in the area of growing. We do have 2 applicants that were interested in cultivation. One of them is no longer interested in cultivation, but the other one still is. They've already submitted their plans for the operation to the city. I know that it would be probably a decision for you to make of whether we want to start all over again with a new opening it back up again. But I'm of the opinion that I don't think we're going to get a lot of people that are interested in cultivation at this point. So to me, I think if whomever has an opportunity to continue on, which are just 2, I would like to see them make whole the city on the monies that they owe up to March of this year. At that particular point, I think that it would behoove us to figure out what the time element would be, which would be probably about knowing Edison, probably 18 months before Edison will get the transformers in, knowing Edison. And I think at that particular time, they should continue to go through the contract as it's written to where they get 50%, or we can allow them to get a 50% contribution. But during the last, I believe, the last 12 months, it would be at 100%. This would give them an incentive to finish early so that they don't get caught up in the paying the full price. If at any time during this period, if we were to grant an extension that we would not see payment, then the whole deal is null and void. The only other option that would be consideration would be at the end, is if instead of demanding all the money at a particular time, much like we do with other developments in the city, is we defer the payment. And I think the interest rate that was discussed to being fair to the public, I think it was 5% compounded. Is that correct?
Yes.
5% compounded interest. I do think whatever our decision is tonight, we need to go back and reevaluate what we've done. I was never happy with the way in which we chose or selected the individual people for the different, whether it was grow, delivery, distribution, testing, or retail. It was kind of mismatched. I also think that the fees that we put down of what our initial application costs were ridiculous. I wasn't real happy with the way in which the whole thing was done. We don't have the ability at this time for distribution, which is a sale from one company to another company. So if somebody was to be in cultivation, they wouldn't be able to sell that product and we would not receive any funding from it. I think that if you are doing cultivation, we can bring a lot more sales tax revenue in if we have the ability to sell the product to other businesses in a large volume rather than just selling it to the customers at that particular point. I also want to make sure that our ordinance prohibits, if possible, other people coming into our city and selling through the process of delivery. I think we need to take a look at that. One of the requests that I received from my city manager is that she would like to take whatever amount of time it takes, because this doesn't happen overnight, and sit down and study and do an analysis of what we've done, come back and rewrite the ordinance as we have it written, and make the corrections of any mistakes or what we have learned since we first established this. At this point, I'll open it up for comments, and we'll start down at that end with John.
Thank you for the recommendations, Mayor. It's been a few years now since we had the measure pass and then launching the program to submit bids. I think it is absolutely worthwhile to re-examine and look at that now that other cities have implemented their own measures about what their rates are and see how competitive we are, but also looking at our own supply chain in terms of, as you were saying, the distribution. We never had particularly interest coming in and testing, but I still see an opportunity as Stanton being early out the gate with being able to kind of capstone and become a hub of sorts of all forms of distribution. So, and that, so I do appreciate that recommendation. I think right now we have an interesting problem where this was renewed. I remember sitting out there in the audience having seen this come up before. With these applicants, we have one that's a combined license, and then one that's a separate license, if I remember correctly. Is that, Hannah, is that correct?
So Culture currently has a license for retail and delivery, and those are both active and operational, and they also, they're one of the ones who have it for the expired cultivation. Stanton Fresh Farms just has it for cultivation.
Okay, thank you. With that, I look forward to hearing what the rest of the council has to say.
I have a huge concern as far as them not holding up their bargain as far as paying. With the first extension, how are we guaranteed that they're going to pay with a second extension? Again, this is money that, I could say our residents expected in tax revenue. And this company has not held their bargain. As a homeowner, if I don't pay my taxes, they come after me. So I have a huge concern as far as them not paying.
I think one of the ways that we could overcome that hurdle, and I agree with what you just said, is we would have them pay whatever they have in arrears and then make their monthly payments we can make it monthly payments, month by month. If those things are not paid on a monthly basis, then that immediately terminates everything.
You know, and that's something I could support, you know, just like back taxes. You know, they make it right. Moving forward, this is when it's due. If it's a certain amount late, then, you know, put in a contract that we can terminate it. I would like to see the company, you know, make good on their end.
Gary?
Companies, the one company that's still interested?
Yeah, I was going, I think we have at least one. I was going to wait for our comments and let him answer any questions that anybody has.
I'd like to hear what statement he was going to make.
Okay.
So a previous council has been on this, the same exact position before. As everybody knows, due to this context, we thought that we were going to get certain tax money generation from these cultivation companies that were going to come in. And last time we extended their permit, they told us that they would be open and operational by now. Unfortunately, that's not the case, you know what I mean? We have a lot of residents who were expecting this tax money. I am not too keen on extending this permit once again. I would look at it if we go ahead and maybe increase the interest rate on the back taxes that are owed. But honestly, I think that we should really vet the companies that come through our city. You know, we need good, high-quality companies that work well with us and that we can follow through. So I don't know how the council is feeling about maybe raising a couple percentages the interest rate in which the back taxes are owed. But apart from any other metric that we can add to, I don't know, at least alleviate or get a little bit more than what we were promised, then I would be okay with that.
And that was a discussion that did come up, what you're talking about. And one of the things that probably I know we're all aware of is we had the COVID period, which kind of really slowed everything. But the big thing right now is that Southern California, Edison, and transformers. Trying to get a transformer in there, you're looking at likely 8 months out from whenever your plans get approved. I'm not saying that that's an excuse. I'm just saying, and I fully support getting our money because that's money that we're entitled to. But as far as the extension goes, I think there are circumstantial things that created that problem. But, you have to set some kind of a drop dead zone. And you have to make sure that whatever you do in your extension is taken care of under our original agreement as far as what we're entitled to financially in the future. Okay, would you like to have anybody speak? Yep. Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this item at this time? Please come up and introduce yourself.
Test. There we go. It's still green. All right. Sorry, my notes closed. I want to make sure that I cover everything. First of all, thank you, Mayor, City Council, staff, and residents for the opportunity to speak. My name is Devin Julian, representing Cannabis Club, Culture Stanton Store, Inc., which is one of the applicants before you today, asking for an arrangement to move forward with the cultivation. So first, let me say that as far as the past due monies, just something that we can clear up, or I think is important to the conversation was we actually had a mix-up with our mailing address with the city. They had our original mailing address from our application, which was 4 years ago. And so we actually weren't receiving those notices, invoices, or anything from the city or city staff until Madam City Manager reached out to me personally and individually, and I think something was sent to the store, and it both kind of coincided within a couple of days of each other. And as soon as we were made aware, I started discussing the issue with staff and with the city manager. To date, so far, we've had a tough go of getting open and operational, and the council's will thus far has been to offer us the opportunity to extend the permit previously. The challenges that we're running into have been significant changes in the plans on a regular basis due to a couple of different things that are happening. One of those is SoCal Edison and their requirements for the power. One of those is just a massive shift in the market generally. You've got a wholesale market that was at one point at the very, probably start of this project, about $3,000 per pound of wholesale cannabis product, and now it's down to about $700 to $1,200, depending on the market time and what's going on in the outdoor seasons. As far as the plans and the changes that we've had to make there, we've run into a lot of different pretty hard stops. The most recent one was SoCal Edison requiring us to change our plans, which would remove 2 parking spaces due to the location of the transformer. That now has set us back with the city and city staff regarding our parking requirements because of the size of the building, hence the request to adjust the parking requirements. We now have been working with the city and the architect and the engineers to just reduce some of the square footage on our current facility so that we would still meet those parking requirements as a potential solution, rather than having the council or staff or anybody go against the code or approve a variance. We have been, I think, getting in much more lockstep with all of the different departments that impact the plans. We have OC Sanitation, we have SCE, we have, of course, city and the city staff, and I think we're right there, ready to pull permits and begin the construction on the project. That is with the current plans that do have some parking issues, so the architect is planning on amending those plans, reducing the square footage slightly so that we can meet that. We are committed to this project. We do want to move it forward. We did propose a payment plan previously, but today here, what I would like to ask of the council, and then I'll answer any questions that you may have, is the most recent balance that we had was the $28,000 and change originally, and that was the one that we've been putting the money together to. So my request tonight would be to have the opportunity to make good on that $28,000. Within 2 weeks. Give us a couple of other weeks to make good on the entire balance, call it 6 total for both of those balances. Maybe give the opportunity for the city manager to look at our amended plans, since this fee is based on a square footage, and to adjust it based on the square footage that we're actually ready to build on and ready to move forward with. And then give us the opportunity to build. I think we'd like to stick with the same contract. One thing that I also want to make sure we're all on the same page with is that this is a request to stick to the current deal that we have. Unfortunately, we weren't getting those invoices. We didn't know the fees. I'm here to say we'll make good on those fees, enact the permit, and then we'll be able to start building and continue with the current contract. If you guys are interested in coming up with some other arrangement that may give us a little bit more capital to continue with focusing on. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. This thing's a little touchy. Then completely open to that. But what I'm asking today is, time to make good on the financial commitments that we've made previously, and then continue along with the project. We want to build. We want to keep more jobs, more money, more tax revenue here. One thing, if you are planning on expanding the program, I think supply chain is great, but I don't know that there's much market share left to expand retail currently. So I just wanted to make that comment, being both a retail operator that is current and continuing to pay our tax revenues and community benefits to the city. And we want to bring another use and make good on the rest of that building that we've got. So that's what I have for you today. Please let me know if you have any questions.
What is the total that they owe again?
Through March, based on one of the things Mr. Julian referenced, is we based the square footage on what they had initially submitted. He stated that based on requirements from Southern California Edison, it will require them to reduce the actual canopy space. So based on the original plan submitted, it's approximately $43,000. if the council were to move forward with some kind of path for them to continue under the current extension that was originally offered, and the council would like me to review with the finance director and the community development director the new submitted plans, we could recalculate based on what is actually going to be operational.
And just to comment on that, the drop is not going to be significant. I'm not talking about a 90% drop. I don't have the exact square footages, but I think it's within 5 to 10% of a total drop in square footage, so we meet the parking requirements is all.
The current amount due is based on 9,167 square feet.
I have a question for city staff. As this gentleman mentioned up here right now, an email mix-up and, having to adjust these parking spots have been, what has been going on to basically delay this project for multiple years. Do you think that these issues are, sufficient enough for us to wait such a long time for them to be operational?
So I'll respond to the financial question, then I'll ask Ms. Lanavaso to respond to the second. So we have always stated with all individuals who are doing business with the city who owe some type of fee or payment plan, it is not the city's responsibility to invoice. They're not supposed to wait on the city to invoice. We do offer that as a courtesy, but it is explicitly included in any contract that the city will not be responsible for invoicing. So yes, I think there was an issue with hard mail going through, but it is not the city's responsibility to invoice. And then I'll turn it over to Crystal.
Go ahead.
Okay. In regard to the revisions that are required, so the application did go through the plan check process. I believe toward maybe August of 2024, the plans were essentially ready for approval. At that point, OC sanitation was needed. By October, that approval was obtained. I think at that point or somewhere around that time, August, is when they contacted Edison. At that point, I believe Edison went out to site a location for the transformer, and they sited it in a location outside of what had already been approved, which is what caused the issue with parking. That is an issue that does come up sometimes that is outside of the applicant's or city's control. We have met with the architect for the project. It is a standard type of delay that comes up with regard to timing. It's hard to say if it's a justified amount of time, but I have seen Edison take a significant amount of time. So with that, in all fairness, there were some items maybe out of control.
I have one more question, if you'll excuse me. Let's say if we were to bring another company in, one that would guarantee, let's say, that they would be open on time, even earlier, let's say, of this company that is here before us. What would there have to be more hurdles, or would they essentially be at the same spot? Like, would they, if let's say, there would be to transfer ownership or something, or a denial of it, would there be a difference, I guess, in how much they need to start up the operation?
Yes, if we're comparing where this project currently stands to a brand new one, it would be significantly more time, especially with regard to the fact that they are actually willing to reduce the size of the building to accommodate the parking demand. That's a fairly significant compromise that they're doing that we don't typically see for just any type of industry, whether it's residential or commercial. So that they are doing that is definitely an act of good faith.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to add to that, to Councilmember Warren's point and Mayor Shaver's point earlier. If we were to reopen the process to new applicants, staff would like to review and potentially update the whole process. So I would say staff would require 12 months to do that internally before we open it up to any new applicants. So in addition to the time that Crystal alluded to, we would actually want to revamp the application process.
Is that 12 months just to do the
Just to redo the application
we would have
process,
another-
and then we would open it through an RFP process.
2 years to get it?
Well,
No, you know what I'm trying
right,
to say.
yes,
Okay.
it would be significantly more time.
Okay, go ahead.
I just have a question for you and your clients. Okay, I get a mortgage payment every month, right, in the mail. If I don't get it, I don't just think I don't owe it. So I just want to hear, they knew it, they agreed to a contract, they agreed to pay a certain amount, they didn't get a billing. Where was their initiative to reach out to the city and say, hey, we haven't got our paid agreement that we owe you this tax revenue? Can you guys send it to the new address? I mean, where was your company, your part in this, as far as taking responsibility, as far as, to reach out to the city?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councilman. We had never paid this fee before. This was a brand-new fee that we agreed to at that time. Completely understanding your question and your point. I'm just saying it's not something that we already had in our accounting prior to making that agreement. And I think the first tranche was due, a couple months after we made that. To be totally honest, I've gone through 3 different heads of accounting right now, and I think just through the shuffle, that invoice never made it onto the accounts payable, and so we weren't reaching out. I can say, with all certainty, and being honest, that as soon as we found out, Hannah and I were in contact. As soon as I realized that there was a miss and that we weren't on top of it, I dropped everything. I made a call. I said, no, don't revoke it. We're still interested. We want to talk. And I did, request some amendments and adjustments. But here today, hat in hand, saying that, yes, we should have reached out. There's no excuse that the ball did get dropped, but willing to make it good and continue with the current agreement. So it's not a new extension, just trying to continue with our new one, settle up, and keep going. Mm-hmm.
I want to go over a couple of things. This is just my personal opinion from a business point of view. As you all know, I was the dissenting vote on this whole thing, of 4-1. But I promised that if it came to Stanton, that I'd make sure it was done the right way and that we got the amount of money that we expected to get and use it very wisely. If we were to not extend this, or if we were to extend it, at the end of the period, which was in the original agreement, was May of 2027, the city would receive a total of $259,470 estimate. Okay? If we don't extend it, we would end up getting, I believe you said 43,000? I figure it's 48, but we're somewhere in that ballpark, right?
If the council does not agree to allow the current extension, we would get nothing. They would walk away because they would say we didn't pay any, and so it automatically terminated. So we would get 0.
Okay, well, that being said, if over this period of time we don't extend it and we go back and put it out to bid, it's going to take them 12 months to come up with a new ordinance. It'll probably take, with Southern California Edison, at least 18 months. That's minimum. So we're looking at 3 years. So we're looking at 3 years with no revenue coming in. If we are to extend it, we would have $259,470 worth of revenue coming in. And during that period of time, staff would have time to develop a new ordinance that we could update and evaluate where we are and what we're doing. And it will also give us an opportunity to add distribution, which is another thing that would be of some value. So if we were to do that, and we didn't receive money when it's due, then I would have to say that this whole thing is null and void. But in order for this to go forward, this has to be brought up to date. That's just a recommendation. I'm willing to listen to what you want to do. John, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Regarding this property in particular, if I'm aware that the cultivation side is an attached building to the retail side of it, isn't this one building altogether?
It's actually 2 units. While it is attached, there is a demising CMU wall, and when we built out the retail, we did make it a completely separate one. So it's actually 2 addresses, yes.
And if I remember correctly, that when you first acquired that building, I mean, it was you had that entire building, and that you were the first business to open up as a retail location with that frontage effectively, but still that back portion remaining empty until you got the cultivation sorted out. So there does seem to be a significant impact here for, I would say the entire operation if half their building remains empty. But, so we have two applications up here, and then the other, or we're two different businesses we're talking about here. So the other one is a detached, if I remember correctly.
Representative from Stanton Fresh Farms in the audience. Yes, I just want to make a comment for the record that we did reach out to the legal counsel that sent the letter with the updated proposal, letting them know that we had a council meeting this evening, that the staff report was on there, so just making a note for the record. So I'm not comfortable answering that. Crystal, I don't know if you can answer that on behalf of Stanton Fresh Farms?
The fact that they haven't paid us either, right? Correct. I think that should be on the record.
Yes, that's also in the staff report, yes. We have not received any payment from Stanton Fresh Farms.
Bringing that up was the combined licensing, when these applications went out, that Culture was one of the combined licenses. And what effectively I was asking is the other business is?
They do not have any other license for any other commercial activity.
Okay, the other cultivator, so isn't there two?
And Fresh Farms only has a cultivation permit, and we never issued combined permits, so I just want to make that
Oh,
clear.
sure.
Culture was issued a retail permit. After all of the delivery, Culture was not an original delivery applicant, but after all of the permittees who were awarded delivery, they expired, they did not become operational by the deadline. The council recognized that delivery was a boon to our existing retail and offered our retailers the opportunity to pursue a delivery permit. So it was not issued as a combined permit, but they do have two permits right now that are operational, and then the cultivation one that we're discussing.
Maybe I'm misspeaking in how I'm saying this, but yeah, I was pointing to that they had a retail license and a cultivating license. And what I was saying is, as combined, is that it's one company operating two different licenses.
Correct.
That's what I was meaning by
Correct.
that. And in this case, the building is actually combined. Yeah.
One thing that I would like to just let council know is, not only do I get a feeling of, untrust right now, but something that the mayor mentioned not too long ago actually made me kind of think, and something that our city manager said, which is, if the mayor was uncomfortable with the process of the selection of these cultivation companies, then, you know what, maybe we should reopen the process. We should change the way that, we do these metrics when it comes to these companies, because if the mayor is, really focused on making sure that these companies are worth it, then we might as well make sure that we update these parameters and make sure that this company who's here for the next 20, 30 years, is up to the best potential and all the qualifications possible. I don't know how the council feels about that.
Well, I get that, but he's here, he came, he's willing to make good, and I don't know if there's late fees, but if there's not, if he's willing to make good by a certain deadline, he's making up for his mistakes. We all make mistakes. Things happen in the corporate world, and I understand that. The other company didn't show, and they were noticed. So at least, he came, he cares. So he's there in front of us, he apologized, they made a mistake. He's willing to make that mistake and right it, and I get it, and maybe moving forward, if council agrees, add on late fees. So in the future, if it happens again, there are late fees attached with it.
I would not be against late fees. I do recognize that he admits, right, there's a no-no going on, but, in terms of the standard, I think that's the bare minimum in terms of what we should expect from companies coming into our city. Yes, we do want to do our best possible to be friendly, especially to your business, and we've been working with you guys for a long time. But lately, and, from our previous meeting, I don't get the feeling that if we extend this, this permit right now, I feel like we're going to be having the same conversation in 2 to 3 years. And how do we guarantee that this does not happen again?
Let's ask that. Could I ask you that question? What do you see the future of this being? Is it going to be more and more delays because of the power?
No, at this point, I think we've got the power figured out as far as at least the plans and everything. Supply chain and everything like that has been shaky since COVID, and I've had power upgrades that did take some time, but with this one, it's not as significant as other projects I've worked on. To be fair, these ones were not SoCal Edison. We have, I think, about 2 years left on the current permit. We want to continue with the current extension and continue to pay. As we said, construction plans were already actually approved, and then OC Sanitation stopped us, not realizing that that was two different departments. And then SCE came out, and after some time working with them and trying to figure out what we were going to do, I think there was, plans at one point in increasing the height so that we could increase the number of lights in the facility. That plan, was rolled back due to budgets as well as power requirements. And then once they actually saw the transformer and its age that was on the pole, they had originally thought that maybe that was possible, but it's not, and they're going to have to put an entirely new transformer in, get it off the pole, and pull power down to that unit, which is a significant investment. So to answer your question, what do I see as the future of this? Pulling the permits, adjusting, making an amendment to the total square footage on it, but getting what's approved now going so that we can have the construction going. To Councilmember Warren's kind of question and point, demo was actually started. That facility or that structure now is kind of in between right now, waiting for those permits to be pulled. So going to be tough to figure out what to do if we're not, following through with the cultivation operation. And I can tell you that the commitments that we made to the landlord as well were based on having a cannabis operation and that revenue there. Turning that into anything else, industrial-wise, storage, that kind of thing, is just not really financially feasible based on what we have planned for the project. So the go-forward plan for us now is get the permits pulled, coordinate with Edison to get that transformer, begin the construction, and get this thing operational before the deadline, and continue to stick to our original commitments.
Worst case scenario, when would you be operational?
I think it was May 2027. Yeah, I mean, we can't miss it again, and to invest that, roughly $250,000 that the mayor was mentioning, along with, significant rent payments that we've been upholding on that facility, along with the security that we've been providing to that facility, both before and after some of the demo had happened, increasing the access. We're significantly invested in this, just with the engineering and the architecture having to change the plans. I think we're on our third iteration. We're at over 150,000 just in drawings. So, we're ready, we're prepared. We want to get this thing open and operational.
I think we should go ahead.
Hannah, moving forward, say we voted for it, what are we taxing them on right now?
So I want to be clear, it's not a tax, it's a cannabis cultivation community benefit
you go.
fee. We have to be careful with the words we use, but what the original council's direction and intent was is that for the first 18 months of the 36-month extension, they are to pay 50% of the cannabis cultivation community benefit fee, which is based on the canopy size on the plan. And for the second 18 months of the 36-month extension, they are supposed to pay 100% of that community benefit fee based on the proposed canopy space.
I just wanted to say a couple things. First of all, I agree with Mayor Pro Tem Torres. Whenever we do it, we do need to sit down and evaluate where we come from and what the future bears, and make those significant changes. That's going to be very important. My only other comment is that I'm going to be making a motion shortly, but I wanted to kind of go over my thoughts. I'm going to probably make a motion to recommend staff at this particular point in time to sit down and, for our own venue, look at the original agreement, the amount of money that is due to us if we were to continue on, so that we have a clear understanding of the number of months, what the costs are to continue it, and then also what the end results would be. Primarily, however, I want to make sure that we consider the fact that if we don't move forward with this, we would lose approximately $43,000. So I think it's worth at least a look. We can turn it down and we can just forget it. I mean, that's an option. But before we do that, I'd like to have an analysis broke down with our staff, and I'm sure that we pretty much have the figures already, so it's not going to take very long. And then if we go with the original agreement, it's pretty much the way it'll be at the end of that time on that March of 2027, we'll have earned around $260,000. Now, somebody's going to ask me, why is that important? Well, one of the reasons why we got our Measure GG passed was to collect sales tax. And the sales tax was to help with public safety. So when you think about it, if we go null for 3 years with this company, it's money that is not being generated that we could use for public safety. So it's just kind of a thought in the background. But I am going to make a motion that we get staff to bring this back so we can get an analysis and make a intelligent decision on this. I had an opportunity to go through these numbers with her, and to me, if we just continue on with it is, we will be okay. But the caveat is what he said and you say. If we don't get something when it's due, it's done. But in order to get to that point, you have to get us back up to speed from where you left off. Thank you. Go ahead, Donald.
One of the things,
Oh, wait, Cindy Donald was next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would definitely back what you just said, but one of the things that I still keep thinking of, and the reason is because I want to make sure that we safeguard our beautiful city, is that what if this happens again? What if we're back here again? I want to ask the council, meanwhile, staff brings this back, what will we get back? What will we make sure that our residents get in return? Because ultimately, I think that that's where the conversation should be centered. So, it's something to keep in our heads, right? Rather in whether in which, what we're going to ask back and whether or not companies could keep doing this to us or not. So, yeah, thank you.
No, I think we can make that secure by number one, having them bring and become current, and then make the payments. We can take a look at the schedule, let them work it out with the staff, and then when a scheduled payment is due, the next one, if it's not paid, then it's null and void. That way, at least we've gotten what we're entitled to up to that point, and we secure ourselves for the future. Go ahead.
and he's to come current, and I have no problem with that. I just think moving forward, if we do decide an extension, right, Hannah, would that be still 50% for the first 18 months?
If one of the options the council can consider this evening is we already have an extension on the books. Currently, it's terminated because they missed a payment. The council could decide to allow them to become current and reactivate basically that original extension. So all the provisions that we agreed to, that we made, an agreement that we all signed would be in effect, which is yes. The first 18 months, which started back in 2024, is at 50% of the proposed canopy square footage. And then the remaining 18 months, the second half of the 36 months, is at 100%. So the council could make the motion just to, as Mr. Julian asked, please let us continue this because technically right now it's terminated.
If we were to move forward, could we up that 50% to 65% to protect our residents?
Certainly, the council can direct staff to, we would sign a new agreement. We would have to make a change to the ordinance, which would take, we would have to bring you an ordinance, do a second reading, do the 30 days to make it effective. Something that I understand the council wants to get more of a commitment through the financial commitment. Something you may want to consider, which would allow us to maybe bypass some of the administrative work related to updating the ordinance, is Mr. Julian has stated their new plans has a reduction in square footage, right? So there will be some type of additional decrease in the community benefit fees owed. If the council wants to see how serious and committed they are to the city by the fiscal contribution they make, you could say, hey, from June of 2024, when you were supposed to start paying the community benefit fee. Crystal, have we received the updated plans yet? No. Okay, so from June of 2024 up through whenever we receive your updated plans with the reduced square footage, you still have to pay based on the proposed square footage, the 9,100 square feet from before. So that is, somewhere between a 10 to 15% And then once we receive your updated plans that have the reduced square footage, then we will recalculate everything based on that. I think that would be a little bit easier for staff rather than having us, because we do have to update the ordinance because we did memorialize it that way. And then you could still, if you follow what's currently in the agreement, it's still the 50%, but it's at the higher square footage rate. A little bit complicated, but, okay.
I think I think what the city manager said would be a good direction to go. Because you gotta also remember that with the reduction in square footage, is gonna be a reduction in their profits. And so we don't wanna, I mean, we wanna grow with them, and we wanna make sure that, you know, they don't fail. We've done that with so many other businesses in the city that we've supported them either, you know, with pass-throughs or helping them with loans. I just think that it's important that we solidify the fact that we need to get our arrears. Let's stay with the original contract so it doesn't get convoluted, and we make sure that we have a safeguard, as the Mayor Pro Tem said, that we make sure that without a payment, then the jam's off, no matter what. That's my recommendation. So let me ask our city manager, what would staff need to get us to where I'm just recommending?
So I think the motion, and I'll say it, and then the city attorney can clarify if that's appropriate. So I think the council tonight would allow, culture is before us. I don't know why Stanton Fresh Farms isn't here, but if you want to apply the same deal to them, that's the council's discretion, but we'll just talk about culture since they did show up at the meeting tonight. That you would allow the agreement that the city has already entered into with culture. You would allow it to continue. You would allow culture a one-time catch-up to become whole and pay the fees owed from June of 2024 through current based on the original application and the proposed square footage. And you could tell me by what date you want them to become whole, right? Are you going to make them pay by tomorrow? Do they have until the end of the month, next month, whatever that is? And then moving forward, they would still have to operate under the existing terms of the agreement, which is that for the first 18 months, they get a 50% off until they submit their new plans. Has to be paid on time. There's no late fees. If you miss a payment, the extension automatically terminates. And then the second 18 months, that community benefit fee goes to 100% of whatever we have on file for the proposed plans for that facility. And then the existing agreement is still in play, and that they have to be operational by May of 2027.
Okay, thank you. I just want to, this is a very competitive industry, right? So I think that if we're going to give this opportunity to this organization or theirs, we need to give it to both, to be fair. So I would like whatever the decision of the council, whatever it is, that we also apply this unilaterally to be fair. I don't think it's for us to, to choose, help one over another. Also, I was going to say, what is it? Michelle, you probably know this. If you miss a payment on something, is it a 60, 90-day? How does that work?
Well, this agreement is unique because it was an extension agreement that was approved last year. Our normal resolution and our normal late fees at the city is a 10%, usually a 10% late fee. And so on our normal cannabis tax, the regular tax, it's a 10% late fee, a 25% penalty, and it's by month. It goes up 1 more percent. So it's you are consistently increased. This particular agreement to extend their permit had different payment terms that did not have late fees because it basically said if you were late, it was void. They basically said what we're agreeing to enforce. We're going to give you a mea culpa and then enforce it. But that's why there is no late fee in this agreement, because the late fee was if you don't pay, it's revoked. But normally it's 10%, I would say, is average and fair.
I wasn't being picky. I wasn't discussing this agreement. I'm just saying in general, if someone has a house or they have a business and they're late with their mortgage or their loan payment, is it 60 days or how long do they normally give?
Oh, I don't know. If you rent somewhere, usually if you don't pay within 3 or 5 days, you're getting an eviction notice. I think it varies from, I mean, if I were to pay my credit card bill late, I'd probably get a $50 late fee. It probably varies from company to company and business to business. But
It depends on what your agreement is when you
depends
sign.
on what it is,
Okay.
yeah.
Go ahead.
I just want to ask council really quick if we're really thinking of also giving this opportunity to Stanton Fresh Farms. I just want to point out that this is literally an item to, get another permit. You know what I mean? To like keep it there, and they're not here tonight. So, yeah.
And I agree. You know what? I commend you for coming in. You admitted the other company, you said, Hannah, you sent a letter out. They're a no-show. I can't see moving forward with the other company until they come in front of the council and, we hear their side of the story. Maybe, do they still exist? That's my concern. As far as moving with you, since you're here, how soon, if we were to decide to give you the extension, how soon can your clients make it whole? How much time would you need?
I would say, thank you for the question and the opportunity. I would say that just to be extra safe, I would ask for 8 weeks, given that it's tax time, and cannabis tax period for especially federal is particularly expensive due to the current federal approach or regulation, Schedule 1, that kind of thing. So I would ask for 8 weeks. Like I said, I can within 2 weeks probably make good on the initial. I think it was 28,000 or so, but then that whole amount, which was listed in the agenda, I would ask for a little extra time. 8 weeks, I think, is fair.
I could be okay with that with one caveat. If it takes you 8 weeks, then on that 8th week, that's what the residual from the 26th we get, and then we're starting at 0. I think that's probably the best thing. That'd be easy for us to keep track. That way, we're never in arrears.
And I would ask, after, if you can, make it whole and come back to the council. That way we can see it, and I'm a person, man of my word. 8 weeks, you know what, here you guys, I'm here. We made the payment, we're all whole. Is there any other questions you have for us? And, maybe a 5-10 minute conversation.
Yeah, I think that would actually kind of go along with what the mayor recommended, is perhaps maybe getting some of that giving staff some time to put some figures together, and then I could be potentially ready for payment and be here with that check, and you guys could decide.
And I had a question for the city manager. When we reached out to the other applicants, did they say that they were not interested in continuing with cultivation?
So the counsel for Stanton Fresh Farms, in the letter that I attached to the staff report, represented both Stanton Fresh Farms and Culture, and they had sent me an email with a bunch of people from both organizations on it. I replied all to that email and let them know the council meeting was tonight, let them know the link where the agenda could be found, and Mr. Julian responded to me. I didn't hear from anybody else on that email, so they did not respond either way.
Did they know at this meeting that there would be an opportunity?
Yes, and they were following along because previously we had planned for this item to come before the council at the previous council meeting, but based on a couple of different reasons, we had to push it. So the legal counsel for them did pick up on the fact that he's like, oh, it's not on your agenda for this meeting, and we explained to him, no, it got pushed because you didn't submit your request to me in time. So they were following along. So I was also surprised that there was no feedback or comment, but I would like to ask the city attorney to weigh in on, there could be a little bit of risk if we treat the two applicants differently, so I will defer to her at this time.
Mayor and Council, I want to make it clear that the ordinance and the agreements are very clear. Both of them have language duplicative and to each other, and it says if no payments are made, then your permit is immediately considered null and void. So there's really no ambiguity in the language, and we were very specific about that in the drafting. So that said, one of the considerations for the council tonight is that to call a permit extension null and void today is completely within the city council's purview. That said, what I'm hearing is that there's a openness to allowing at least one of the cultivation extension permittees to have a one-time kind of catch-up within 8 weeks. And, you know, given that the legal counsel for Stanton Fresh Farms has expressed, you know, communication with the city manager, then the suggestion would be to provide it for both permittees.
So because of the way the law, if we were to open it up for both, right, and they came through, the other company didn't, then we could void that contract.
And one of the suggestions I was going to make, Mayor and Council, was if the direction is to provide a one-time catch-up in 8 weeks, to re-agendize this item in 8 weeks, to bring it back to affirm that whoever has paid is on the record now has made it their catch-up payment, and the other one, or both, haven't, then really the terms of the ordinance and the agreements are very clear that they can be immediately called null and void.
Go ahead, Dom.
So just to confirm, HD, thank you. So you're saying that we cannot terminate Stanton Farms contract today if we give them an extension or a one-time catch-up?
So what I'm saying is, you know, under the terms of the agreement and ordinance, the city council can call both of them null and void. The city council, what I'm hearing is that the council's open to this permittee giving a one-time catch-up. It would be prudent to extend that, given that the city does have very strong grounds, at least, to call both of them null and void, but if, for equity purposes, to provide the same kind of option.
Well, guys, it's truly about what we want, you know, and when we'll get it, and, you know, the respect that we're given, you know what I mean? So, yeah, let's think about this.
Okay, that being said, from what I'm hearing from the council, is that we're willing to extend for cultivation following the original contract, no changes. We'll also give any of the applicants for cultivation the opportunity to continue on. As we extend the payment will be due in, I guess, 8 weeks is what we agreed on, right? And the payment will be from today, whatever it is, well, I guess we figured it to the end of March, so we go 8 more weeks, wherever that date is.
Yes.
Wherever that date is, that's the date everything's due, at the prevailing rate that we have right now.
If that's the council's, you know, direction, then I would also suggest, Mayor and Council, that there would be an addendum added to their agreements documenting a one-time catch-up within the 8 weeks, and agreement that certainly that would be, if that's the council's direction, the very last extension.
That is that we need to make sure that the agreement is signed by anybody that wants to participate with us at this time, and also make it clear that the 8 weeks begins at the end of the month of March. The agreement is, right? Because we have to have a time for that.
So 8 weeks from council's decision tonight, or 8 weeks starting April 1st?
I think, no, that's what I meant, at the end of the month. So April 1st, that gives them April and May.
So we can calculate the full month, and that's
That
fine.
makes sense. That way
Okay.
it doesn't interfere with the past amount. Okay?
But they will be required to catch up on everything they owe as of May 31st, 2025. They will have to bring in a check, and we'll return to the council at the next council meeting to tell you yes or no, they paid their full amount that was owed through May 31st of 2025.
We also availed them the opportunity to make a payment, a partial payment.
If they want to make a partial payment, they can, but they must be paid up in full no later than May 31st,
If they want to
2025.
give us a partial payment of $30,000, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
How does that sound as far as the?
I appreciate the opportunity to continue with the project. I do like that timeline. I think is something that we can commit to and follow through with. And I appreciate the opportunity to pay early, but I would like to just have the 8 weeks to get fully caught up. I think is.
And I just
sure
want to
that
be
we're ready.
clear, it's going to be a little bit confusing, Mr. Julian, but this next quarterly period, because these are quarterly payments, the next quarterly period starts March 1st, ends May 31st. So by May 31st, you will be paying us in full the past due amount, but then 30 days after May 31st, the next quarterly payment is
Understood.
due.
Yeah.
And then I'm happy to get your correct email address, or whatever, and come up with the billing schedule and the quarterly thing.
Thank you.
So I think it's good that we give them the calendar, so that we give them the due dates for the next 2007. We just put that baby in there, and then we're all on the same page, and there's no confusion.
Is there a motion?
Okay, so we have a first by Gary and a second by... Let's have a roll call on this, please.
Not a problem, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Warren? Councilmember Barrios? Councilmember Taylor? Mayor Pro Tem Torres? And Mayor Shaver? Thank you. Item passes 5-0.
Checkbook. Okay, moving on to my favorite subject. I think so, if I can find it. Oh, sewer. You know, OC Sand, baby, that's me. All right, we're on item 2B. This to approve a resolution number 202507 to adopt a sewer capacity charge.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. The city in September of 2024 issued a contract to Wildan Financial Services to complete two studies. One is a sewer rate study, which we will hear in the second presentation. And the other was to help us determine a sewer capacity charge. And the purpose of the sewer capacity charge is a new charge that, if approved by resolution tonight, would be effective immediately. And what it does is it has developers buy into our existing sewer system that we have, because as we have more development, that impacts the capacity and the flow of our system. So with that, I am going to hand this over to Mr. Chris Fisher with Wildan Financial Services to provide you the presentation.
Good. Thank you, Michelle. Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council, and city staff. Chris Fisher with Wildan Financial Services, and privileged to be before you this evening to present the results of both the capacity fee study and the rate study. So that the presentation is broken up into two parts. So I'll describe the capacity fee study and then stop, and there'll be a chance for questions and discussions, and then you'll take action on that. And then I'll pick up again with the rate study. So first, just to overview kind of the purpose and kind of some of the concepts and the results of the capacity fee study. So as Michelle mentioned, what that is, it's a mechanism for customers who, either new customers who require capacity in the system or existing customers who are redeveloping property or expanding that require increased capacity to pay a fee that offsets the cost of that capacity. This is important to maintain equity between existing customers and new customers. Existing customers have already paid for that capacity, and so new customers are now paying their fair share. So the objective of this study was to calculate a fee based on cost-based analysis that would be charged to new customers, or again, customers coming in requesting expanded capacity. Sir?
Did you get your capacities from the OC Sand?
It's from existing city documents and master planning documents, because this is just for collection and conveyance of wastewater to OC Sand.
Yeah, I know, but there's averages. There are averages for different things like restaurants, houses, industrial.
Oh, yes. Yeah, so
yes.
We're using their standards.
Data for that?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Where did you get the data for that?
From the city and OC Sand.
From the who?
From the city and
Staff?
Thank you, that's all.
Okay. So again, new customers connecting to the system require system capacity. And in some cases, in some cities, that may be capacity that has to be constructed. Not the case here in Stanton. There was existing capacity through the analysis we did and talking with city staff. There is sufficient capacity to serve new customers added to the system or customers requesting expanded capacity. So the cost-based capacity charges ensure that new customers pay their share, proportionate share, so that new growth pays its own way and does not impact existing customers or existing capacity in any way. Want to mention that this is different than the connection fee that the city has on its master fee schedule. That connection fee is actually the physical act of establishing a new customer, so going out, installing the connection, inspecting, and setting up new customers in the billing system, all of that. So this is just for them to pay their share of system capacity. That connection fee is for a different process and set of steps. Here are the steps that we went through. First, take a look at the existing customers as well as the potential for any growth. As you all know, Stanton is essentially built out. Any new growth or development would likely be infill or, again, expanding some facilities or accounts or properties to an increased level. So we took a step of determining the capacity of the existing system and the existing facilities, and then as well as the cost of existing facilities. And we looked at the original cost and brought that forward, accounting for inflation and increasing costs over the years, as well as depreciation of existing assets. And then we developed a fee that basically calculated based on the number of accounts or residential accounts, equivalent residential accounts that could be accommodated by the system and the cost of the system, what a cost per residential unit would be. And that's the amount that would be paid by new residents that's essentially equivalent to existing residents or customers' costs that they've already invested in the system. So revenue from these capacity fees can be used to reimburse the city for prior infrastructure investments. Can also be used to fund capital projects to upgrade and modernize and repair and replace aging components in the existing system. And just from a legal standpoint, the capacity fees are developed and implemented in compliance with the Mitigation Fee Act. So the next slide is just a table that outlines the new fee, starting with the 5/8" meter fee, which is $487, and 5/8 is the typical residential meter size. And then the fees are incremented as meter sizes go up based on American Water Works hydrology equivalencies for different size meters and the capacities of those, the hydraulic capacities of those, and the equivalent demand they can place on system facilities. So that's the final slide there of the capacity fee portion of the study. So at this point, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to address those. And then otherwise you can discuss and take action as you see fit.
Okay, so it's around $40 a month, right?
This is just a one-time fee.
And it's about $40 a month.
It would be paid at $487 per equivalent residential unit would be paid at the Public Works counter. This isn't the same as
No,
the
I'm
sewer
just
rates.
telling you, it seems to me that the average is about $40 a month. People paying, I mean, I know we're paying a total, but we're paying about $40 a month.
It's just a one-time fee.
One-time
It's only
payment.
paid, it's essentially paid when they request a building permit.
Okay, some resident's gonna come to me and say, gee, $487. Well, that averages about $40 a month. But you're paying it at one time. I understand that.
You pay it once
It's not
at the
paid annually, it's
development.
only paid one time.
Question is, how much, they go up 5%? How much did the construction fees go up?
I don't have the percent.
The normal COLA of 5%?
Well, we currently charge 0 because this is a brand-new fee.
Right.
If the council approves the adoption of the resolution does include, just like our master fee schedule in January, the resolution does authorize staff to increase this fee by the construction cost index.
Correct.
Every July 1, starting July 1, 2026, realizing that, this is a new fee of $487, and, 15 months from now, we would increase it. This is a brand-new fee. This is a brand-new fee that would be charged one time.
A little more history. So as As we discussed in the report, this is to bring equity to our sewer infrastructure system. So right now, just as an example, if we have a new development come in, and let's say they have 100 ERUs, 100 units, and they connect to our sewer system, the existing residents and businesses are basically subsidizing their use of the system. They had to pay a connection fee, which is the actual connecting to, but they've never had to pay the sewer capacity fee. And so one-time payment, but yes, Mayor, if they were going to assume they wanted to pay over a month long, or they were budgeting for a year long, it would be approximately $40 for that smallest capacity. So yes, we don't have anything prior that this is increasing over, but moving forward, it will have the appropriate increase index, which in this case is the construction index.
It is a one-time fee.
One time when the developer comes in or the existing applicant is remodeling, one time and they're done with this fee.
So it's based on probably on
On the size of the meter.
on the MEP, the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. In other words, the volume of water is determined in the plans, right?
Well, what we did kind of at a very basic level is we calculated the value and cost of the existing sewer system and sewer infrastructure within the city, and basically divided that by the number of existing customers to come up with a per customer amount. And so now new customers will pay that per customer amount so that everybody's on equal footing. Everybody is essentially paying their fair share of the cost of the pipes and infrastructure and everything to collect and convey the wastewater.
Great, but what's our appeal process?
Excuse me, sir?
Our appeal process.
So Caesar or Crystal, what would be is there an appeal process if a developer believes that they shouldn't pay a fee? Or is that just memorialized as part of the process, so they have to if they want to proceed with application approval?
Yeah, as of right now, I mean, that's with this new fee, they would have to pay the fee for moving forward. I mean, I don't know of any appeal process right now.
No, for a fee like this, there would be no appeal process. Essentially, if they want that addition or they want that type of development, they need to pay the fee in order to obtain it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
How soon would the fee take effect?
Unlike our master fee schedule that needed a 60-day waiting period, this would take effect upon adoption. So tomorrow, Monday, as fast as the next person comes in.
Okay, any other questions? Is there a motion? Go ahead, John.
Does this count for ADUs as well? Or
If it needs a new meter, yes. Anything that would require a new meter based on the size.
Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation. Appreciate it very much. Great job.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the questions.
Is there a motion? I'll move it. I'll second. Roll call, please.
Would suffice, sir.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? That passes unanimously. Okay, now we're moving on to,
More sewer.
oh, we have more sewer?
More sewer.
Is that sewer C or sewer B?
Sewer 12C.
Okay, thanks. Setting the public hearing to consider establishing a sewer user rate for the sewer services for the fiscal year 2025 to 206 through the fiscal year 2029 to 230.
Yes, so thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Wildan Financial Services completed this study for us. And just to give the City Council a little bit of background, the last sewer rate study was completed in 2017, and that covered the annual sewer service charge that gets placed on our property owner's tax bill for fiscal years 2017-18 through fiscal year 21-22. So we have kept the annual sewer service charge, that's a tongue twister, the same for the last 4 years. It has not changed. We did not do any CPI increases. We kept it flat, and it's taken us this long to complete this project because we have been waiting for the Public Works Department to complete the sewer master plan update. because that was a plan that took a lot of effort. It was very crucial to know the capital improvement needs of our sewer system to then justify what the needs in the future were and how much we needed to collect from our ratepayers to not just maintain our existing system, but to fund the capital improvement needs. So the sewer master plan was approved by the City Council last July. City Council awarded Willdan's contract in September. And the purpose of tonight's presentation is for the council to see the results of the rate study, give us feedback, or if you approve the recommendations provided by staff, then we will move forward with the Proposition 218 process, which requires that we mail a notice to all property owners, notifying them of a public hearing, and it has to be mailed at least 45 days before that public hearing. So based on today being March 25th, and how the calendar rolls, if all works well, we're going to plan on setting the public hearing on June 10th. So we want to get your buy-in on this rates and our recommendations, and then with your approval, get your blessing to move forward with our noticing. With that, I'm going to hand it off back to Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Michelle. Mayor, members of the City Council, Chris Fisher again with Willdan Financial Services. To now shift gears, so we talked about the one-time charge that new customers would pay to establish a new account. Now we're talking about the ongoing rates that existing customers pay on an annual basis as part of their Orange County secured property tax bill. So as Michelle stated, the purpose tonight is not to implement any new rates, take any action to actually establish and implement those rates. It's to hear these results and then set a public hearing when we'll come back and do that later in the year in June, as she mentioned. So the goals of the rate study were, first and foremost, to evaluate the ability of the sewer utility, evaluate its financial condition and its ability to meet its commitments to keep the utility operating and doing everything it needs to do. So to that purpose, we developed a 5-year financial plan. And a big part of that financial plan was to ensure that we had funding to pay for operations and maintenance, inspections, all the things that utility city staff do on a regular basis to make sure the system is operating at peak efficiency and able to provide service to take wastewater from customers and convey it away to OC Sand for treatment. We want to ensure that capital projects identified as part of that master plan were accounted for in this financial plan. As Michelle mentioned, that was a very important process the city goes through to go out and evaluate all the infrastructure, make assessments of any new things that need to be done to replace aging components, and I'll have a list of projects here in a slide or so, to make sure that, as pipelines age and components of the system age, that they're replaced in a timely manner. And any other thing that's identified in the master plan is a deficiency that needs to be corrected. We want to make sure that there are adequate reserves maintained, and particularly in a case where this charge is only levied one time a year, and so payment is only received from tax proceeds as they're collected on the property tax, as opposed to a lot of cities that do this monthly or bi-monthly. You want to make sure you've got enough cash in reserve for immediate needs, emergencies, and things like that. Finally, we want to make sure that any rates that are developed are equitable and based on the cost of service as required under Proposition 218, and ensure that all the way through the process we maintain compliance with those